I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the painting. It wasn't just the subject, although that alone was enough to make my chest tighten. It was the way it was lit. Centered, framed like a revelation. Harper, my wife's best friend and a well-known provocateur in the local art scene, had thrown another one of her dramatic gallery openings downtown. I didn't particularly care for most of the pretentious chatter that usually accompanied her shows, but as Olivia's husband, I'd become a familiar fixture, usually found sipping cheap wine while she floated from person to person, dazzling with her curated charm. This time, I came alone. Olivia had texted just 2 hours earlier that she was feeling off and would skip it. I almost skipped it myself. But something instinct maybe pulled me there anyway. Harper had gone all out. Dimmed lighting. Ambient electronic music humming like a low heartbeat. The crowd was the usual mix. Aging critics, tattooed hipsters with thick-rimmed glasses, bored socialites pretending to understand what brushstrokes meant about the human condition. I drifted past a few large, angular abstracts. One piece looked like someone had murdered a bucket of red paint with a baseball bat. Another looked like a child's temper tantrum on canvas. And then I turned the corner into the small alcove tucked away near the back. And I saw her. The model's body was unmistakably familiar. Pale skin kissed with olive undertones. A slight curve in the small of her back, the way her hips tapered inward and then out again. Her hands were tied behind her with a crimson ribbon, her spine arched in a pose that danced somewhere between submission and defiance. Her face was turned away, hidden by a veil of tousled hair, but that didn't matter. I had seen that body naked more times than I could count, had touched it, memorized it, worshipped it. I would have known it in a crowd of 1,000. It was Olivia. I took a step closer, my heart hammering against my ribs. The painting was sensual. No, not just sensual, brazen. Erotic. The curve of her ass, the slope of her back, the subtle part of her thighs, the way her head was tilted just slightly as if mid-moan. I felt myself react involuntarily. That mix of arousal and betrayal that no one ever talks about. She had been captured in a moment I had never seen. A moment I had never been told about. There was no title beneath the frame. Just a small brass plate that read, Muse, Oil on Canvas. Muse. The word stabbed me. I stood there too long. A couple brushed past, murmuring their thoughts in that faux scholarly tone people adopt at galleries. I think it's about control and the illusion of restraint, one of them said. I love how raw it is, the other added. So fearless. I wanted to laugh. Fearless? Or deceitful? Harper was across the room near the bar, surrounded by admirers. She hadn't seen me yet. Part of me wanted to walk over, throw my drink in her face, and demand answers. Another part of me, a darker part, wanted to stay in the shadows and watch. Let them keep revealing themselves. Because this wasn't just about a painting. This was a clue. A crack in the glossy shell Olivia and Harper had both worn for years. I suddenly remembered how close they had become again lately. The wine nights that went longer than they used to. The cryptic inside jokes. The late text Olivia would receive, always with Harper's name on the screen. My wife never told me she posed. Not a word. And we told each other everything. Or so I thought. I left the gallery in a daze. The cold air hit me like a slap. I walked 6 blocks without realizing where I was going, her image still etched in my mind, not just the painting, but the Olivia I thought I knew. The one who read beside me in bed, laughed at my terrible cooking, and wrapped her legs around me in the quiet hours of the night. That night, I didn't bring it up. I told myself I needed to be sure. Needed to confirm it wasn't some trick of my imagination. But the moment she curled up beside me in bed and placed her hand on my chest, I felt it again, that same body, that same scent. I could feel the painting echo in my mind like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how long that painting had existed, how many others had seen her like that before me, and what else she hadn't told me. I waited until Sunday morning. It wasn't strategic, just instinct. Olivia was sitting at the kitchen island, legs folded under her, scrolling through her tablet while sipping black coffee, her unreachable mode. She wore one of my old t-shirts, loose and faded, her hair tied in a messy bun that still somehow looked graceful. A quiet domestic moment. I placed a mug down next to her, sat across the granite top, and casually asked, "Why didn't you tell me you modeled for Harper?" She blinked. Just once. But I saw it, an imperceptible hesitation. Her eyes didn't meet mine right away. She reached for the coffee I'd set down, blew on it unnecessarily. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, that. She waved a hand like swatting a fly. It wasn't really modeling. Just Harper being her dramatic self. You know how she is. Everything has to be dripping in metaphor and mystery. I didn't respond right away, just held her gaze. Was it recent? I asked. Olivia shook her head too quickly. God, no. A while ago, before things got busy with your work. I barely remember it. Liar. That painting wasn't from a while ago. That was Olivia now. Present-day Olivia. The slight birthmark on her shoulder blade that hadn't even darkened until 2 summers ago. The way her hips curved. She'd only started Pilates last year, and I'd seen the change. Felt it under my hands. That was a current portrait. A living one. Fresh paint. You didn't think to mention it. I pressed, my tone level, maybe too neutral. She rolled her eyes. I didn't think it was a big deal. Harper's always asking people to pose for her weird projects. She said it was for a private collection. Then I guess she changed her mind. I nodded slowly, but something inside me flared, a hot, itchy pulse beneath my skin. It's just a painting, babe, she added, reaching across the counter to place her hand on mine. Her fingers were warm. Familiar. I'm not hiding anything. If it made you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. I forced a smile. It's fine. I was just surprised, that's all. Later that night, I woke to the soft glow of her phone lighting up the dark room. I don't usually snoop, but that light? It was like a spotlight on her lies. I turned slightly, watching her silhouette as she slipped quietly out of bed, phone in hand. She padded down the hall, screen facing inward. The way someone moves when they don't want to be overheard. I counted the seconds. 30, then 40, then a full minute. I got up, walked to the door, and opened it just a crack. Her voice was hushed, but clear enough. No, he asked. I told him it was nothing. Yeah, I know. Don't worry, it's fine. A pause. A low laugh. Another pause. Then, of course I remember. Every second of it. She turned slightly, and I closed the door before she could catch me. Slid back into bed, heartbeat hammering in my chest. She returned a few minutes later, cool and calm, her hand grazing my arm as she slipped under the sheets. I pretended to stir, like I'd just shifted in my sleep. She stilled. I felt the silence settle between us like a second blanket. Too heavy. Too warm. In the morning, I didn't ask who had called. She didn't offer it either. What she didn't say mattered more than anything she did. And from that point on, every touch from her felt rehearsed. Every kiss had a second meaning I couldn't decipher. The woman I loved sat across from me at dinner and talked about her day, her meetings, her yoga instructor's annoying new playlist. And I nodded. I smiled. I even laughed when I had to. But I was watching her. Not my wife. Not anymore. I was watching a stranger play her part too well. I wasn't looking for trouble when I agreed to go to Harper's next dinner party. That's what I told myself anyway. The invitation came through Olivia, naturally, and offhand. Harper's having a few people over Saturday. Wine, music, maybe some of her newer stuff. You want to go? It was the way she asked. Too casual, almost careless. That made me say yes. The truth was, I wanted to see Harper again. Not out of curiosity. Not even out of suspicion, though I won't pretend that didn't fuel me. No, I wanted to see how she looked at Olivia in a room full of people. I wanted to see if that same painting hung in her private collection. I wanted the truth, something raw, unscripted. Saturday came fast. Harper lived in a converted loft downtown, all exposed brick and vintage rugs, oversized windows and curated chaos. Her style screamed effortless decadence. When we walked in, the place was already humming, jazz spilling from hidden speakers, the air laced with red wine and clove. Olivia wore a black silk dress that dipped low in the back. Her, I'm not trying, but I know you're looking dress. She fit in here. Too well. She floated into the room, greeting people like she belonged, like this was her habitat. And I followed, the supportive husband, the +1 in tailored restraint. Harper greeted us with a wide grin and a glass of something dark and expensive. You made it, she purred, brushing her cheek against Olivia's in that lingering, almost too close way. Then she turned to me, eyes glittering. You're braver than most. These things can get a little intimate. I smiled. I like intimate. She raised an eyebrow. I bet you do. The room was full, faces I half recognized from gallery nights and local arts pages. Olivia disappeared into a circle of friends near the fireplace. Harper moved on to play hostess, and I found myself at the drink station, refilling my glass and wondering what I was really doing here. That's when Kylie appeared. Kylie was Harper's other best friend, the third musketeer, the slightly sharper edge in their trio. Where Harper was fire and Olivia was silk, Kylie was ice. Beautiful, cool, calculated. I'd met her a few times, enough to know she wasn't shy about calling out bullshit when she saw it. "Enjoying yourself?" she asked, sliding next to me, sipping white wine like it was water. I shrugged. "I haven't decided yet." She smiled faintly. "Smart answer." We watched the room for a moment in silence, I scanning the little pockets of conversation and flirtation. Then her tone shifted. "So, you saw the painting?" I didn't flinch. "Which one?" She scoffed gently. "Don't do that." "You know which one." I met her gaze, trying not to show the heat rising in my chest. "Yeah, I saw it. And my wife never mentioned it." She tilted her head, her lips curling around a faint smirk. "No, I don't suppose she would." I narrowed my eyes. "Why not?" She took a long sip, then leaned closer. Her perfume was something subtle and citrusy, fresh and precise, like the woman herself. "Because those painting sessions," she whispered, "they weren't as innocent as she says." The room dimmed around me. Or maybe it was just the blood draining from my face. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice low. She glanced around, casual, careful, before continuing. "I'm only telling you this because I hate liars." "And Harper?" She gave a short, dry laugh. "She paints with her whole body, let's just say that. And Olivia wasn't just her muse. She was her playground." My stomach nodded. "You're saying they were?" "I'm saying," Kylie interrupted softly, "that whatever she told you, it's the half-truth version. I've seen things. I've heard things. And I've been asked to pretend I didn't." She pulled back, looking me square in the face. "But I'm tired of pretending." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to demand details. Names, dates, positions, even how twisted is that? Another part of me wanted to walk straight out the door and never speak to either of them again. Instead, I stood there, swirling my drink and nodding once. "Why are you telling me this?" Kylie smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because I've always liked you. And maybe, just maybe, you deserve to know what kind of gallery you've been hanging your heart in." She walked away, her words hanging heavy in the air behind her. Across the room, Olivia laughed at something Harper said. A full, genuine laugh. The kind I hadn't heard at home in weeks. And suddenly, I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was awake. I got the text the next afternoon. "Kylie, you free tonight? I have a bottle of Barolo and a story." It shouldn't have thrilled me. It shouldn't have sent a pulse through my body like a low current. But it did. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. "Me? Yeah. What time?" "Kylie, come around 8. Don't eat." Her townhouse was tucked just off a quiet street near the university, artsy, minimal, with curated clutter, stacks of records, leather-bound books, framed black and white prints. I'd only ever seen it once before, during a fundraiser Harper had hosted there. That night had been a blur of music and faces, nothing like this. When Kylie opened the door, she wasn't wearing the Ice Queen armor she usually did. No heels. No sleek office attire. Just bare feet, jeans, and an oversized sweater that hung just low enough on one shoulder to feel intimate. Her hair was down, thick, dark, a little messy. It made her look softer, more dangerous. "You're early," she said, stepping aside. "You said don't eat." I took that as a serious threat. A smirk tugged at her mouth. "Come on in." She led me through to the kitchen, where the table was already set. Candles, 2 plates, a small spread of figs, goat cheese, crusty bread, charcuterie, and that bottle of Barolo breathing beside it all like a promise. "I cook when I need to think," she said, pouring our glasses. "Must have been thinking hard." "Oh, you have no idea." We ate slowly at first. Talked around things, music, art, the gallery scene. I didn't push. Not yet. I let the wine warm us both, let the tension build naturally like a string being pulled tighter and tighter between us. Then, after a long silence, she set her glass down and looked at me. "Harper has always had a particular taste in muses," she said. "It's not just about art for her. It's about possession. She likes to find people in the middle of their lives, people already tethered, and pull them into her orbit. Make them hers." "And Olivia?" I asked. Kylie's expression tightened. "Olivia resisted at first, but you know how Harper is relentless. And Olivia, she wanted to be seen again, desired, worshipped. I think Harper made her feel like a masterpiece. Not a wife, not a woman with bills and routines and grocery lists, but a thing of beauty." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My jaw clenched. Kylie leaned back, swirling her wine. I walked in on them once, she said quietly. The air shifted. I was supposed to drop off some canvases during one of their sessions. Harper gave me a key. I let myself in. Thought they'd be in the studio. They weren't. My throat went dry. I found them on the chaise in the back room, she said, her voice calm, clinical even. Olivia was sitting on Harper's lap. They were kissing. Hands everywhere. Olivia's blouse was half open. Harper didn't even flinch when she saw me. Just smiled. Like she wanted me to see it. Olivia looked, surprised. Ashamed, maybe, but not enough to stop. I closed my eyes. The image struck too hard. Too vivid. They didn't stop? I asked. No, Kylie's voice dropped. They didn't even pause. Harper kissed her harder, like I was just part of the scene now. Olivia kept going too. Maybe out of shock. Maybe because she liked it. I stood and paced the kitchen once, letting the words settle, sting. I stared out the window, trying to breathe through the cold weight pressing on my chest. I didn't tell you to hurt you, Kylie said behind me. I told you because I saw how you looked at her. At both of them. Like you still believed the painting was fiction. I turned to face her. Why now? I asked. Kylie hesitated, then stood too. Her voice dropped to something almost fragile. Because I've been watching this play out for months. Pretending not to notice. And it's exhausting. Watching you play the good husband while Harper paints your wife like a goddess she owns. And because. She stepped closer. Her voice lowered. Because I've always wanted you to look at me like that. There it was. The line we hadn't yet crossed. The air between us cracked with something hot, dangerous, magnetic. Kylie, I warned, my voice rough. But her hand touched my chest, slow and deliberate, resting over my heartbeat. I'm not going to seduce you, she said. Not tonight. That's not what this is. But I needed you to know. Not just about them, but about me too. She stepped back. Just enough to give me space to breathe again. I'll crash on the couch, she added. You can take the guest room. I didn't plan on staying. You should. You've had half a bottle of Barolo and your world just cracked open. I wanted to argue. But she was right. I stayed. The guest room was small, but clean. Quiet. But sleep didn't come easy. Because now I had more than just suspicion. I had the truth. And the truth didn't come gently. The morning sun slid between the blinds in thin gold slashes, painting lines across the guest room ceiling. I'd barely slept. My mind wouldn't stop. Not after what Kylie told me. Not after how close we'd come to something irreversible. I heard the soft creak of floorboards outside the door. A gentle knock. You up? Kylie's voice, low and tentative. Yeah, I answered. She cracked the door open. Her hair was still messy from sleep, and she wore a long, gray tee that fell to mid-thigh, probably from some ex-boyfriend or one of those ironic thrift shop finds. There was something disarming about her like that. Less sculpted. More human. I made coffee, she said, holding up a steaming mug. I sat up slowly, rubbing my eyes. You didn't have to. I didn't want to feel guilty about drinking the last of it without offering. I took the mug from her, our fingers brushing briefly. Static crackled between us again, subtle but impossible to ignore. Did you sleep? I asked. She shrugged. Some. A pause. You stayed, she added softly. Wasn't sure you would. Didn't trust myself to drive. Smart man. I sipped. Strong. Black. The way I liked it. She remembered. She hesitated at the doorframe like she was debating something. Then, can we talk before you go? I nodded. We moved to the living room, where the sunlight filtered through tall windows and lit the room in a kind of soft quiet. She sat on the edge of the couch, her knees tucked under her. I settled into the armchair across from her. There's something else I need to tell you, she said. And I swear, this isn't some twisted strategy. I'm not trying to win points. I waited, the coffee suddenly bitter on my tongue. I had a thing for you. For a long time. I didn't react. Not outwardly. She continued. When Olivia first introduced us, I remember thinking, goddamn, he's the one. You were grounded. Real. The kind of man women didn't think existed anymore. I let the compliment pass. I wasn't in the mood to feel good about anything. But I backed off. Out of respect. She was my friend, and you were her husband. End of story. What changed? I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. She looked up, I searching mine. I saw the way she took you for granted. The way she let Harper consume her. It wasn't just sex. It was obsession. And you were just supposed to be the good little husband, waiting at home while your wife became Harper's living art project. That part stung. Probably because it was true. She used to talk about you in this detached way, Kylie went on. Like you were her past, and Harper was her now. Like you were a safe place she could always return to. A fallback. She said that. No. But you learn to read between the brushstrokes when you're around Harper. I leaned forward, setting the mug down. And last night? Was that part of some plan? I asked. She shook her head slowly. No. But I won't lie. I hope something might happen. I've imagined it. Too many times, probably. But that's not how I want it. Then how do you want it? She took a breath. I want to be wanted for the right reasons. Not because your wife broke you. Not because Harper turned her into something you don't recognize. I want you to want me because I see you. Because I've always seen you. Her voice caught slightly at the end. A silence stretched between us. There was no denying I was attracted to her. That I had been, maybe longer than I cared to admit. But now, with everything unraveling around me, wanting someone felt like a betrayal to myself, to who I used to be. Still, I believe you, I said, standing slowly. But I need to figure out what the hell I'm doing before I can figure out who I am to someone else. She stood too, not closing the distance between us. Fair, she said. At the door, she hesitated. There's something else you should have. It's not my place, but you deserve the truth. She disappeared into a drawer and returned with a small flash drive. She placed it in my palm, her fingers lingering. Harper records everything, even when people don't know they're being recorded. That's her thing, capturing the real essence, or whatever bullshit she says in her artist statements. I stared at the flash drive. What's on it? Audio. One of their sessions. You'll know what matters when you hear it. I didn't ask how she got it. Didn't want to know. The weight of it in my hand was enough. Thank you, I said. You sure you don't want to come back in? She asked, half a smile playing at her lips. I smiled faintly. Tempting. But I think I've had enough temptation for one night and one morning. As I stepped outside into the cool morning air, the weight of the flash drive in my pocket felt heavier than it should have. Whatever came next, this would change everything. I hadn't drawn in years. Not since college. Really, not seriously. Not since the mornings I'd spend alone in cafes, sketching strangers with lazy confidence and cheap graphite. Life, marriage, a mortgage, a job that slowly dulled the edges of who I used to be, all of it buried that part of me. But after everything with Olivia and Harper, after Kylie and her whispered truth, I felt like I needed to pull something up from inside me just to remember I still existed. Not as Olivia's husband. Not as the betrayed. Just me. So I opened the spare room in our house that used to be my office and pulled the old sketchbook out of its drawer. The paper was yellowing, the cover warped slightly with time. But it still smelled the same. That faint scent of graphite dust and history. I started with still life. An empty wine glass. My hand. The shape of Olivia's perfume bottle, the one she used to wear before Harper, before things changed. But it wasn't enough. My fingers itched for something more alive. More intimate. I texted Kylie. Me, still up for modeling? She replied almost instantly. Kylie, absolutely. When? Me, tomorrow night. My place. No pressure. Kylie, none felt. I'll bring wine. She showed up the next evening in leggings and a plain tank top, hair pulled back into a loose bun. No makeup. No theatrics. Just Kylie, stripped down to her essence. And it struck me how rarely we see someone that unguarded anymore. I cleared the space in the office, set up a chair for her and one for me, and angled the lamp for soft shadows. You ever done this before? I asked. Posed? No, she said, settling into the chair, one leg bent under the other. But I've watched Harper do it 100 times. I think I know how to sit still and look interesting. You already do, I murmured without thinking. She didn't smile. She just looked at me with those steady eyes and said, then draw. So I did. At first, I focused on her posture, the arc of her spine, the slope of her neck, the delicate way her fingers curled over her knee. But before long, my lines softened. They became less about accuracy and more about feeling. I found myself tracing the curve of her lips in pencil. Her collarbone. The way one strap had slipped slightly off her shoulder without her noticing, or maybe she had, and left it that way on purpose. You're staring, she said after a long silence. But there was no accusation in it. I'm studying. She tilted her head. Same thing. Does it bother you? No, she said quietly. I like how you look at me. I paused, pencil hovering over the paper. My throat tightened, and for a moment I didn't speak. I didn't know what to say without it leading somewhere we weren't supposed to go. She shifted slightly, uncrossing her legs. The movement changed everything. The weight of the pose, the angles, the tension in the air. You want me to hold still? She asked. I swallowed hard. No. Actually, do what feels natural. So she moved. Slowly. Subtly. Like she was letting me watch her breathe. I didn't draw for a moment. I just stared. And then I picked up the pencil again, sketching like I hadn't in years, like the paper mattered. Like she mattered. We kept going for hours, talking in soft spurts, mostly silence. And then, when the wine was gone and the light outside turned navy blue, she stood and came around behind me, looked over my shoulder at what I'd drawn. She didn't say anything at first. Then, you made me beautiful. You already are. She placed a hand on my shoulder. Soft. Grounding. Her thumb moved just slightly, back and forth in the fabric of my shirt. Don't get me wrong, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I want you. I want you in every way I shouldn't. She leaned closer. Her breath touched my ear. But I also want you to want me without needing to hate her first. The words sat heavy between us. True. Raw. I don't hate Olivia, I said. Not yet. I'm just starting to see her. Kylie pulled back slowly, and for a second, I thought she might kiss me. But instead, she nodded once. Good. She kissed my cheek instead, just a brush of lips, and whispered, for the record, I'm still open to posing again. Then she left. No lingering. No expectations. Just a goodbye and the soft click of the door. I sat in the dark, staring at the sketch I'd drawn. Kylie, eyes downturned, lips parted, body relaxed but radiating tension. There was nothing between us but pencil and paper. But the way she looked at me, that wasn't innocent. And I wasn't sure how long I could keep pretending I didn't want more. It started with a joke. A dumb one. Something about my coffee being too strong and Kylie calling me a caffeine masochist. But it made me laugh, really laugh, for the first time in weeks. The kind of laugh that sneaks up on you, makes you exhale like you're letting go of something heavy. I remember her watching me across my kitchen table, one eyebrow raised, her lips twisted in that sly, knowing grin of hers. You miss her, she said quietly, not a question. I looked down at my coffee, still warm between my palms. Yeah, I admitted. Or maybe I just miss who I thought she was. Kylie nodded, her own mug forgotten in front of her. That's fair. We'd been seeing each other more often, not in the way people talk about affairs, not with hotel keys or midnight texts. Ours was slower, quieter. She'd drop by with fresh bread from a bakery she liked. I'd invite her to stay for lunch. We'd talk for hours about art, about regret, about what it means to be seen. But we hadn't crossed a line. Not physically, emotionally. We were halfway across the damn ocean. I found myself telling her things I hadn't told anyone. About the first time I saw Olivia, at a bookstore in the city, pulling a copy of Letters to a Young Poet from the shelf like she already knew I'd be watching. About the way I used to leave her notes on her pillow. About how she used to draw on the fogged bathroom mirror, tiny hearts, crooked smiley faces. She used to make me feel like I was the only real thing in her world, I said once. And now, Kylie had asked, now I feel like I'm background noise to her performance. That night, Kylie stayed until nearly midnight. We sat on the couch, close but not touching. The sketchbook sat between us, filled now with drawings of her, some candid, some composed, all intimate. I caught her looking at me from time to time, not flirtatiously, not hungrily, but like someone memorizing a moment they weren't sure they were allowed to keep. And then one evening, everything shifted. It was raining, one of those slow, steady drizzles that darkens the world outside, but makes everything inside feel closer, warmer. She was curled up on the corner of my couch, a blanket pulled up to her waist, legs bare underneath. Her hair damp from the rain. She looked comfortable, at home in my space in a way that should have terrified me, but didn't. We were watching some old black and white film neither of us cared about, letting it flicker on in the background as we talked. Do you ever think, she said softly, that maybe we meet the right people at the wrong time? I turned to her. She was watching me, eyes softer than usual. Yeah, I said. All the time. Her breath caught slightly. She looked down, then back up again. And before I could stop it, before I even wanted to, she leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't planned. It was a confession. Her lips were soft, warm. She tasted faintly of red wine and something sweeter, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Connection. Comfort. Safety. I didn't kiss her back right away, but I didn't pull away either. When I did respond, it was slow, careful, almost reverent. But then I broke it. I can't, I whispered, my forehead pressed against hers. Kylie nodded, her hand still resting on my chest. I know. I'm not ready to be with someone else, not when I haven't finished being angry with her. You don't have to explain. I want to. She leaned back, giving me space. The moment had passed, but not disappeared. I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water to still the rush in my blood. When I came back, she was pulling on her jacket. You don't have to leave, I said. She looked at me with a sad smile. If I stay, we'll kiss again. And the next time, it won't stop there. I didn't argue. Because she was right. At the door, she paused. You deserve someone who sees you, not who paints you into their version of the truth. Thank you, I said. She touched my face, just once. Just promise me something. Anything. When this all blows up, and it will, you'll remember who you are. Not just who you were with her, but who you were without her. I will. The door closed behind her with a soft click. And just like that, I realized I had already started mourning Olivia. Not because she was gone, but because the version of her I loved, the version who used to look at me like I was her center, had vanished long before I knew to look for her. I always assumed that when she found out, it would be because I told her. That I'd sit her down, level with her across the kitchen table, say something dramatic but grounded like, we need to talk. Instead, it was far more poetic than that, tragically so. She found the sketchbook. I was in the shower, hot water scalding my shoulders, trying to wash off a sleepless night and the scent of Kylie that still lingered in the air, even though we hadn't done anything. At least, not physically. When I stepped out and reached for the towel, I heard the silence. Not the peaceful kind. The loaded kind. Like a room holding its breath. Olivia was standing at the edge of the bed, her back to me, my sketchbook open in her hands. Page after page, flipped slowly. My lines. My shadows. My renderings of another woman, Kylie, in all her quiet beauty and raw honesty. Not naked, but intimate. Real. Personal in a way I hadn't let myself be with Olivia in a long time. She didn't speak when I entered. Water dripped down my back as I stood there, wrapped in a towel, stilling myself. You've been drawing her, she finally said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Yes. She turned the page slowly. These aren't just sketches. They're something else. They're truth, I said. Something I haven't had with you in a long time. She closed the book and placed it gently on the bed like it was fragile, like it might explode if handled wrong. Her eyes found mine. Are you sleeping with her? No. But you want to. I didn't answer. And that said everything. Her breath caught, but she didn't cry. Olivia was never the sobbing kind. When she broke, it was internal, slowly corroding under the surface. How long? She asked. I stepped into the room, sat down on the edge of the bed. Not too close. We didn't plan it. It just happened. One night she told me something about you and Harper. Things I didn't know. Things you never told me. Her jaw tightened. So you found someone to help you cope? I found someone who told me the truth. And then you started drawing her like one of your French girls? The sarcasm was there, but it was laced with bitterness, not humor. I looked her in the eyes. Don't turn this into a joke. You and Harper. She's just an artist, she interrupted. No. She was more than that. Still is. I heard the recording, Olivia. The color drained from her face. I walked over to the desk, picked up the flash drive Kylie had given me, and placed it on the dresser. I didn't want to listen, but I did. You had no right. And you had no right to lie, I snapped. You told me that painting was from years ago. But that recording? It was recent. I heard your voice. I heard hers. I heard all of it. Her legs gave slightly, and she sat on the bed, hands braced against her knees. How could you do that to me? I asked. How could you invite me to a gallery opening and stand there while I looked at a painting of my wife posed like Harper's personal fantasy? I didn't think you'd notice. Then you don't know me at all. Silence. She stared at the floor, blinking slowly. It didn't mean anything, she said. I let out a bitter laugh. God, don't say that. Don't reduce it to a cliché. That recording didn't sound like nothing. It sounded like obsession. I was lost, she whispered. And she made me feel alive again. I didn't think. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. She finally looked at me, eyes glassy now, lips trembling slightly. Are you leaving me? I didn't answer right away. I'm already gone, I said. She inhaled sharply, but didn't fight it. Are you with her now? She asked. Kylie. I shook my head. No, but I'm not with you either. She nodded slowly, as if she'd known this moment was coming for a long time. Maybe she had. Maybe she'd been preparing for this goodbye since the first kiss Harper gave her that felt more exciting than anything I could offer. "I loved you," she said. Her voice cracked. "I still do." I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel that ache. That need to fix her. To fix us. "I believe you," I said. But sometimes love isn't enough when trust is gone. She reached for my hand, but I didn't take it. I walked out of the room, down the stairs, and out the front door with nothing but my keys and the sketchbook. She didn't follow. And that silence? That was closure. By the end of the week, I'd already started boxing up my life. Not out of rage. Not even out of sadness. Just necessity. Because once the truth's been dragged into the light, recordings, sketchbooks, confessions, there's no putting it back into the shadows. Olivia tried, at first. Of course she did. That Monday morning, she made coffee like nothing had happened. Set it on the counter beside my keys, poured it into the mug she knew I liked. Cream, no sugar. The way she used to before the Harper era. "You're not really moving out," she said, trying to sound casual, like I was being dramatic. "We can talk. We can fix this." I picked up the mug, sipped, looked at her. "You had every chance to talk before I found out," I said. "Now it's just noise." She flinched at that. I didn't mean it to be cruel. But honesty sounds a lot like cruelty when you've gotten used to people sparing your feelings. By Wednesday, she'd moved from bargaining to blaming. "So this is about Kylie now?" "Really?" She snapped, arms folded tight across her chest as I carried another box down the stairs. "No. This is about you. About Harper. About the fact that I gave you my life, and you gave it to someone else in oil and canvas. You don't even know what you're doing," she hissed. "You're throwing away 17 years over one mistake." I dropped the box on the floor and turned to her. "You didn't make a mistake, Olivia. You made a choice. Repeatedly. You chose her. The calls. The painting. The lie. The moment you said, 'It's just Harper being dramatic,' while hiding your phone on the porch like a teenager, you were making your choice. And I'm making mine." That shut her up. She looked smaller then. Diminished somehow. Like she'd put on a costume that no longer fit. Maybe Harper had made her feel powerful. Desired. Free. But now? She just looked tired. She didn't try to stop me again. What surprised me more was Harper's silence. She didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't show up on our porch with her signature bottle of wine and fake sincere apologies. Nothing. Which told me everything I needed to know. Harper didn't avoid conflict, she curated it. If she was quiet now, it was because the illusion had shattered in ways even she couldn't frame. Maybe she didn't expect Olivia to crack. Maybe she thought I'd be the good little husband who'd stay for the kids we didn't have, the stability we'd built, the house with the perfect neutral walls. Maybe Harper just didn't expect me to leave. But I did. 1 week after Olivia found the sketchbook, I was gone. I left the furniture. The bed we barely touched anymore. The knives we never sharpened. The portrait of us she insisted on hanging in the hallway, us smiling, in Rome, before any of this started. It looked like strangers now. I packed the essentials. My clothes. My books. My grandfather's watch. The sketchbook. And one drawing of Kylie, just one. The one I'd drawn when she was laughing at something I'd said and didn't know I was still sketching. The one where she looked alive, real, human. I didn't tell her I was moving out. Not at first. That came 2 days later, when I texted her. I left. I didn't say anything because I didn't want it to be about you. It's not. It's about me. But thank you for helping me remember who I was. She replied 10 minutes later. I didn't want it to be about me either. But if someday it is, I'll be here. I stared at that text for a long time. Not smiling. Not crying. Just feeling something I hadn't in weeks. Stillness. And in that stillness, there was space. Olivia asked one last question before I left. The night before, as I closed the bedroom door with the suitcase on the floor and the finality in my posture. "Are you going to be with her now?" Her voice was small, stripped of edge. I looked at her, really looked. Her face was tired, her eyes rimmed in red, her hair pulled back like she didn't have the energy to try anymore. "No," I said, "but you could be." I shrugged. Some things are better left unclear. She nodded. Once. Then turned away. I closed the door behind me. That was the last time I saw her. It had been 4 months since I walked out of that house. 4 months since Olivia found the sketchbook, since the audio file changed everything, since I stopped pretending I was holding together something that had already shattered. 4 months of silence between us. No messages, no late-night calls, no half-hearted apologies. And 4 months since I'd last seen Kylie. Not because I didn't think about her. I did. Constantly. Her laugh. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking. The way she let herself be seen without apology. But I needed time to make sure that what I felt for her wasn't just fallout. That I wasn't trying to replace betrayal with longing. So I drew. Every day. I filled sketchbooks. Dozens. Portraits. Still lives. Urban scenes. I lost myself in it, like I was pouring everything I had into charcoal and graphite. And when the gallery down on Elm, Ash Mark, a new spot run by a guy named Theo who used to be a student of Harper's, asked if I wanted to submit something for their fall show, I didn't hesitate. Not to spite Olivia. Not to prove anything to Harper. But to finally put something into the world that wasn't about destruction. Something that was mine. The gallery was packed that night. Low lights, soft music, the buzz of conversation bouncing off painted walls. I stood in the corner, sipping wine, watching as people wandered from piece to piece. Most of them didn't know who I was. That was fine. I preferred it that way. Then I saw her. Kylie. She stood near the far wall, just where the light hit best. In front of her portrait. It was the only piece I submitted. I'd called it Repose. She was fully clothed in it. Jeans, a loose sweater, barefoot, curled into herself on the edge of a couch, laughing. Not posing. Just existing. There was nothing overtly sexual about it, but the intimacy in it was undeniable. Her hair spilled across her shoulders. Her eyes sparkled with something between mischief and knowing. It wasn't a portrait of a muse. It was a woman's scene. She turned, like she knew I was watching. Her smile broke slowly, like sunrise over still water. You came, I said when I reached her. Of course I did, she said. I wouldn't miss this. We stood in front of the portrait for a long time, neither of us speaking. Finally, she asked, what made you choose this one? I exhaled. Because it's not about pain, or anger, or betrayal. It's not about Harper, or Olivia, or revenge. It's just real. She looked at me then, her hand brushing against mine. And what about us? Are we real? I didn't answer with words. I just turned my hand over, let my fingers interlace with hers, slow and certain. I didn't want to be someone you ran to, she said. I wanted to be someone you arrived at. I know, I said. And I think I'm finally here. We didn't kiss, not in that moment. We didn't need to. The silence between us was different now. Not heavy, not uncertain, but filled with potential. Behind us, strangers murmured about shadows and strokes, about the emotion in the lines, the tension in the smile. But none of them really knew. They didn't know that the woman in the painting wasn't a symbol, or a fantasy, or a consolation prize. She was a beginning. And this time, the art wasn't about pain. It was about rebirth.